Welcome to Talk Smart English, the place where we share powerful stories in English that not only inspire your life, but also help you master the language of success. Today's story is about one of history's most remarkable inventors, Thomas Alva Edison. He's often remembered as the man who gave light to the world, but behind the brightness of his inventions lies an even brighter truth: Edison's refusal to give up, even when the world thought he was finished. This is not just a history lesson. This is a story about perseverance, resilience, and the power of never giving up. As you listen, I invite you to think about your own dreams, your own failures, and the power of never giving up. Part 1. Humble Beginnings. Thomas Edison was born in 1847 in a small town in Ohio, USA. He was the youngest of 7 children in a struggling family. From the very beginning, life tested him. As a child, Edison had problems with his hearing. Some illnesses damaged his ears, and he became partially deaf for the rest of his life. Imagine being a child, unable to hear well, trying to learn in a classroom. His teachers thought he was slow and difficult. One teacher even called him addled, meaning confused or not smart. At just 7 years old, Edison was taken out of school. But here is where his story takes a turn. His mother, Nancy Edison, believed in him. She decided to teach him at home. She gave him books, encouraged his curiosity, and told him he was capable of great things. Edison later said, "My mother was the making of me. She was so true, so sure of me, and I felt I had someone to live for." Lesson 1 from Edison's life. Sometimes, all it takes is one person believing in you to change your destiny. At Talk Smart English, we learn from Edison's childhood that even if society doubts you, your story is not finished. Part 2. A Curious Mind. As a teenager, Edison was fascinated by how things worked. He built a small laboratory in his parents' basement. Using simple chemicals, bottles, and wires, he started experimenting. At the age of 12, he took a job selling newspapers and snacks on a train. But he didn't waste his time. Inside one of the train cars, he set up a mini laboratory and a small printing press. He published his own newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald. Imagine that, a boy of 12 creating his own newspaper while traveling on trains? His experiments sometimes caused trouble. Once, a bottle of chemicals fell and started a fire on the train. The conductor threw his equipment out of the window. But Edison didn't quit. He kept experimenting wherever he could. That passion for learning and his willingness to fail would later fuel his greatest successes.
Part 3. Early Failures. Before Edison became the Wizard of Menlo Park, he experienced many failures. He worked as a telegraph operator in his teens. He learned how to send and receive messages through Morse code. This job gave him the chance to experiment with electrical systems. But he was fired from several jobs because he was too distracted by his experiments. He tried inventing devices that didn't work. He lost money. Investors walked away. People laughed at his wild ideas. But Edison didn't see these as failures. He saw them as lessons. Each mistake taught him something new. He once said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." At Talk Smart English, this quote teaches us a new vocabulary. But more importantly, it teaches us a new way of thinking. Failure is not the end. It is the beginning of wisdom. Part 4. Lighting up the world. Now we arrive at Edison's greatest challenge, inventing the electric light bulb. By the late 1870s, Edison was already known for creating the phonograph, a machine that could record and play sound. But the light bulb was the dream. Other inventors had tried before him. Their bulbs burned out quickly, were too expensive, or were dangerous. The world thought it couldn't be done. Edison disagreed. He and his team tested thousands of materials for the filament, the little wire inside the bulb. They tried wood, metal, paper, grass, even human hair. Nothing worked. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. But Edison refused to stop. His laboratory floor was covered with broken bulbs. His notebooks were filled with failed attempts. When a reporter asked him why he kept failing, Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset is what separates dreamers from achievers. Finally, After testing over 6,000 plant fibers, Edison discovered that carbonized bamboo could last more than 1,200 hours. In 1879, Edison's light bulb burned bright, and it kept burning. The world would never be the same. And that, my friends, is why at Talk Smart English we say, when you feel like giving up, remember Edison's light. He turned 10,000 failures into one success that lit up the planet. Part 5. A Legacy of Inventions. The light bulb was only the beginning. Edison went on to create the phonograph, motion picture cameras, storage batteries, and improvements to telegraphs and telephones. By the time he died in 1931, Edison held over 1,000 patents, more than any other inventor of his time. Think about that. A boy who was called stupid by his teacher became one of the greatest inventors in history. But what truly made Edison special wasn't just his inventions. It was his mindset. He believed in hard work, persistence, and optimism. He once said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." In other words, success isn't about being naturally smart. It's about working harder and refusing to quit. Part 5. A Legacy of Inventions. The light bulb was only the beginning. Edison went on to create the phonograph, motion picture cameras, storage batteries, and improvements to telegraphs and telephones. By the time he died in 1931, Edison held over 1,000 patents, more than any other inventor of his time. Think about that. A boy who was called stupid by his teacher became one of the greatest inventors in history. But what truly made Edison special wasn't just his inventions. It was his mindset. He believed in hard work, persistence, and optimism. He once said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." In other words, success isn't about being naturally smart. It's about working harder and refusing to quit. Part 6. Lessons for us today. Edison's story teaches us more than history. It teaches us how to live. 1. Failure is not the end. Every mistake brings you closer to the solution. 2. Curiosity is power. Ask questions. Experiment. Never stop learning. 3. Hard work beats talent. Edison wasn't born a genius. He built himself into one through effort. 4. Believe in yourself even when others don't. If Edison had listened to his teacher, he might have given up at age 7. 5. Never give up. 10,000 failures didn't stop him. Why should one failure stop you? At Talk Smart English, we encourage you to practice these lessons not only in English, but in life. When you face challenges in learning this language, remember Edison. Every mistake you make in English is not failure. It's a step closer to fluency. Part 7. Closing inspiration. As Thomas Edison grew older, he became a symbol of determination. People from all over the world came to see his laboratory at Menlo Park, the place where failure was transformed into brilliance. When he passed away in 1931, the entire United States dimmed their lights for 1 minute in his honor. Imagine that, a whole nation honoring the man who had given them light. So what's the lesson for us today? The lesson is this: never let failure define you. Never let doubt defeat you. And never give up on a dream that sets your heart on fire. Here at Talk Smart English, we tell you these stories because we believe English is more than grammar and vocabulary. English is the language of ideas, of inspiration, of change. And if Thomas Edison could turn 10,000 failures into the light bulb, then you can turn your struggles into success in English, in life, and in everything you do. Because at Talk Smart English, we don't just teach English, we share the language of success.